Good evening and welcome to another edition of Special Assignment. I'm Asanda Magaqa. Tonight we bring you a very disturbing story. A story that can only be described as a crime against humanity, as authorities fail in their duty to protect the vulnerable people. We bring you the stories of Zimbabwean women and even men who were brutally raped as they crossed the Limpopo River in search of a better life. Our investigation took us right into their so-called no man's land, where border gangs operate with impunity. A small group of illegal immigrants crossing the Limpopo. It's been a long journey until now, but they are unaware of the dangers that still await them on the other side of the river. Almost all of the women who use this crossing have been raped in the past.
My sister-in-law was raped by 5 guys in front of me. I was watching it happening. They just stripped her naked and then started raping her.
Sometimes they cannot walk properly because they've been abused with more men, like 4 or 5.
I am on the river bank of the Limpopo River. Across the river is the beginning of Zimbabwe. On this side of the river is the beginning of South Africa. In between these two countries, in this river, is no man's land. Neither one of these two countries has control over this uncontested area of land, and it is precisely because of that lawlessness prevails. Refugees crossing this river are subjected to various kinds of criminal acts perpetuated by gangs operating in these bushes, known as Amagumaguma, who rob and plunder whatever little their victims have. For women particularly, the first experience they have of South Africa is rape, making this no man's land no woman's land. In his poem, Elephant Child, Rudyard Kipling describes the river thus: I am going to the great, grey-green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about by fever trees, to find out what the crocodile has for his dinner. It is first light on the Limpopo, and its banks are set about with fever trees, their golden-bowled flowers opening to greet the day. Oblivious to its beauty, here thousands of impoverished Zimbabweans flee the meltdown of their country and seek illegal entry to the promised land. On the far bank of the river, on the South African side, there are 3 walls of fencing. Erected in the apartheid era, they are relics of an old battle that now forms the front line of a new crisis. They were originally an electrified barrier to the guerrillas of the ANC, but the electricity has since been switched off. Today, the South African government uses the fences to stem the tide of refugees crossing over. This is the town of Musina, a thriving economic hub near the border between South Africa and Zimbabwe. The road that links South Africa to Zimbabwe has become the busiest in Africa. This is largely due to thousands of people crossing the border into South Africa every day. It is estimated that at least 300 Zimbabweans arrive daily in South Africa. Some statistics indicate that in January 2009, Musina had a shifting population of about 15,000 foreigners, overwhelmingly Zimbabweans. About 5 kilometers outside Musina is the township Nansfield, where women immigrants are sheltered in this church. Now this is a transitional home, and the women immigrants can only stay here for a maximum of 3 days. I have come here to speak to them about the abuse they have suffered at no man's land. This is the Old Catholic Church, sponsored by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. They provide meals to about 100 or more people who bed down each night.
The women who are coming near the shelter, they were abused. Sometimes they cannot walk properly because they've been abused with more men, like 4 or 5. They're saying at the border they are magumaguma, the men called the magumagum. They abuse them, they take everything what they have, or that the clothes, the cell phone, the money, and they leave them like that. Sometimes they left them in the bush. We give them food and the toiletry, this, and the clothes for the children, and the clothes for the ladies. They have to stay for 3 days. Then they pass by. So the others might come from Zimbabwe.
When they leave here, where do they go? What happens to them?
They're just looking for the job. Others are going to the farm. Others, they say they're going to Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town. They say they're looking for the job.
But why is it a transitional shelter? Why don't they get accommodated for long?
We don't have enough space. We cannot accommodate them.
But even as those who run these transitional shelters do their best to give the women and children a semblance of stability, these shelters remain a place that house violated women and children. Nearly every woman migrant I spoke to here reported having been raped, witnessing rape, or actively fearing rape. 15-year-old Memory carries in her belly a permanent reminder of the rape she experienced. Memory recalls how, as she and 2 friends swam across the river, they were accosted by 3 men waiting for them in the bush. She says they were taken deep inside the bush and then the rape happened. She says she was a virgin before then. She says her rapist really injured her and that there was blood all over. Memory doesn't know what she'll do when she finally gives birth to a son. She is contemplating giving her baby up for adoption. Although 17-year-old Innocence wasn't raped at the border, she too was violated by a fellow countryman shortly after she arrived in Musina.
When we reached there, the men, then my sister came back, and then I was left there alone. And he said that you are my wife, and you don't have to deny that. Then I said, I'm not your wife. Then he said, no, you are my wife. Then she said that she wanted to sleep with me. Then I said, I don't want. Then he forced me.
Do you need maybe paper and envelopes and stamps?
They must respect women and children, because as children, we are the leaders of tomorrow. If they destroy us, then there is no future in the world.
The average, the age of these migrants and asylum seekers crossing the border is very low. So we are talking about most of them between 18 and 23, 24 years old.
After the break, shocking rape statistics emerge from the border. Giuseppe Demola, who runs the non-governmental organization Doctors Without Borders in Musina, says they have noted alarming trends of sexual violence and rapes against women crossing over the Limpopo River.
We open a service, a clinic for victims of sexual abuse in Musina area, and we opened it in April 2009. So let's say that in 2009, so up to December 2009, we had an average of 15 cases per month. Starting from January 2010 up to today, this number has increased. So now at the moment we have 25 cases per month.
As alarming as these statistics are, they don't tell half the story of the sexual violations that happen to the women.
In March, we assisted 35 people, but according to their testimonies, at least 70 more, they were with them and they were also abused by this Guma. So in March only, we are sure that at least 100 people were abused at the border.
Shortly after doing this interview, 2 women arrived at the Doctors Without Borders clinic. Both were raped.
When I was just keeping scores, as never started, as yes, as last year. Tina sasihambela sisiyakhona
Bangaphi namagumaguma?
Sahlala lapho engu-2.
2. Ban rape nonke. What happened when you got to the mine?
Then I say, where are you going? You can reply me, where are you going? You can reply me. They stop. And they said, they just saw I just want to have a sex with you. And I said, why? So I just want to have a sex with you. Then I will go. Take me into the car, then put us outside.
Here in this clinic, Doctors Without Borders personnel offer various kinds of necessary services for the victims.
As a medical organization, for us now the priority is to treat these 2 women. So because they've been abused today, so it means within 72 hours from the violence, we can provide them the HIV prevention treatment. This, at least is something important we can do for them. And we can also do the treatment for sexually transmitted diseases. And also we will check if they are pregnant or not.
Tabani Machakaile works for the organization Lawyers for Human Rights in Musina. He says the illegal route is often the preferred route.
Most Zimbabweans don't have passports, and to access the border post, you need to have a passport. It's not to say these things are really so expensive as to be out of their reach, because when they get to Beitbridge, they pay these people who are called the Omalaisha to transport them across the river for the amount that they would have got a document for, a travel document for. So really I can't understand why it is that they don't just simply do that.
Most Zimbabweans come here for economic reasons, and the women that get violated want to simply move on with their lives.
When you come to the police and tell them that, look, I was sexually abused, raped, or assaulted within the riverbed, they will tell you, look, they'll ask you, was it on the Zimbabwean side? Was it on the South African side? If you say you're not sure, they'll say, well, if you're not sure, how can we investigate? Chances are it was on the Zimbabwean side. And if you go to the Zimbabwean police with the same story, they'll say, which side was it on? The South African side or was it on the Zimbabwean side? And they'll say, maybe it was on the South African side. Go and report that side in South Africa. So you see, you have a victim who's caught between a rock and a hard place. They don't know where to go.
They cross the border illegally. So they are really afraid that if they go to the police, they can have some kind of problem. They can be sent back to Zimbabwe. Even if they don't run, there is not this risk because, as you know, there is a moratoria on deportation from South Africa to Zimbabwe. So they cannot be sent back, but they don't know. So the first reason is that they are afraid. Second reason, because they know that report the case to the police, it takes time. It can take really days, sometimes months, until the case is in the court.
It's very difficult because most of these crossings occur at night. It's when, there's cover of darkness. People can't then see you. That is the army and the police. They can't see you as you cross. So under cover of darkness, this is when this raping, this assault, this robbery and all these crimes take place.
In Nansville Township, there's a shelter for men only. Unlike the Women and Children's Center, the men's shelter is in a much poorer state. The men sleep in this tent. They eat only once a day. Here I meet a man who we'll call Thomas. Thomas witnessed the brutal rape of a relative as they crossed the Limpopo River illegally.
The day I came across the border, right, first I came using my passport. Then I had to go back because my sister-in-law, right, asked me to come and help her to cross. I went there, I saw these guys, paid them, then we came across. As we were crossing the river, it was about 50 meters away from the river. These guys came, they attacked us. I was stripped naked myself because I was putting on some expensive jeans that they wanted. Then I was given a shot. And then my sister-in-law was raped by 5 guys in front of me. I was watching it happening. They just stripped her naked and then started raping her.
Thomas has a good idea of who these Gumagumas are.
These guys are the militia that was trained by Zimbabweans as the national service, and they were never given jobs. And these guys, they vent their anger onto the other citizens. Because you find them, the way they are doing it, they are highly trained, most of them. And some of them are the ex-soldiers who ran away from the army, and then they saw an easier way of making money.
We cannot be satisfied to detect more than 30 cases of rape per month in a no-war context. So we cannot be satisfied, and it's really hard to accept that a police or army like the South African police cannot really find a solution to stop this systematic. Because as I told you, we start to have this kind of service in April 2009. So now it's a year almost, and the number is increasing. So the problem is not solved, but it's getting worse and worse.
After the break, exclusive footage of border gangs at work. It is in these bushes, on the banks of the Limpopo River, where we encounter the notorious Guma, who operate with total impunity.
My name is Taruvinga Shou. I come from Masvingo in the Ngundu area. We are making a living out of the crime in the bush from the Zimbabwean immigrants who are going to Johannesburg. We take the money they have, clothes and everything, and we leave them like that.
In chilling detail, this man explains how they go about their criminal acts.
People are not the same. People who stay in the bush for long periods are the ones that end up doing all sorts of things like raping women. Those who do not want to be searched are beaten and stabbed with pangas.
The small group of illegal immigrants finally reach the South African side. Suddenly, things change. The men who helped them cross the river suddenly turn on them. Our investigator, who infiltrated the gang, filmed this with a camera hidden in a bag. It is a tense moment for this group, especially the women, not sure whether they will be raped as well.
They take the women by force and keep them here in the bush for maybe 2 days or so. So they are different. Some are looking for money, some are rapists. These guys here are sexually starved. They will just rape a woman even if she is sick or what. They just don't care. There is no time to check whether she is sick, because it's all happening in the heat of the moment. There's no time to ask her questions whether she's sick or what.
Our investigator says despite the intrusive and undignified body search, none of these women were raped, as far as he knows. Taruvinga describes the sting operations sometimes carried out by the South African police as ineffective.
Police always come to the bush and raid, but it's not effective because they come wearing uniforms, and also the soldiers, they come in their uniforms, and they can easily be identified from a distance, and then the criminals have a time to run away. And here in the bush, there are many places to hide. Some police came here in civilian clothes, and they managed to catch a few of the gang members. Some of those ones are in prison as we speak.
The lawyers for human rights are contemplating taking the legal route to force the hand of government.
Would have to litigate, maybe to force their hand to say, look, can you look at these people's rights as well, and you need to protect their rights. because they are not South Africans, but once you are in South Africa, the constitution is clear. Everyone is equal before the law, so protection of the law is across the board, irrespective of where you come from and who you are. So that is exactly what, as lawyers for human rights, is if we don't see something happening soon, we'd have to think seriously about that.
Machakaile also believes that this crime against humanity is a crime against everyone, be they Zimbabwean migrants or South African, and therefore no one can afford to turn a blind eye.
That's the thing with crime. It doesn't have a border. It doesn't choose its victims to say, I'm only attacking Zimbabwean women. Tomorrow they'll be attacking South African women. You understand? So to get rid of criminals is just the way to go. Just don't have them commit crime against anyone. It's just like when you arrest a disease, the disease doesn't know whether you're a South African or a Zimbabwean or a Malawian. It will just attack you and infect you and can kill you if it's a deadly disease.
Police issued a late statement saying they have a task team in place and several arrests have been made so far. Meanwhile, for these women, life must continue. They will try to put the horror of no man's land behind them and move on with their lives.
So what are you going to do about this rape?
Nothing you can do.
Why? Why do you say that?
That's because I've got a husband and my kids.
Where are they?
Zimbabwe.
A very disturbing situation which needs to be addressed immediately. Well, that's it for tonight. Join us again next week for more award-winning investigative journalism. And don't forget to send us your comments and even video clips to truth@sabc.co.za. Thanks for watching and good night.